Welcome to Breaking the Lines Pod. I'm Arland.
My name is Akeem, and this is a Premier League podcast.
Match week 27 done and dusted. How are you feeling?
Sir, I'm good, my brother. How are you feeling today?
Not too bad, man. Same old, same old. Was actually an interesting and not a bad weekend, I'd say. And not just because Arsenal won, but you know, I realize this, man, when you remove the emotion out of it, you enjoy it so much better.
Bro, I'm telling you, you notice I've been chilling. It's also good, like Arsenal one for you,
Yeah,
though. I feel you on that because you know how the mood changes up and down. I
yeah,
go through
yeah.
that sometimes as well, but I think it's a lot better for me, especially this week, because I see a lot of crashing out going on, and I was honestly chilling.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was interesting, man. Did you get to watch a lot of games or
Not on
mostly highlights?
I watched I was able to catch pretty much like three on Saturday or
Mhm.
two, I would say fully the Chelsea one because all of those came on at 10. So I watched that one on my phone and then I was able to catch the Newcastle Man City one. So the Villa Leeds I didn't see it entirely, and then the Brentford, Brighton and West Ham Bournemouth I was able to catch like half and bits and pieces. I wasn't really paying attention. So it was a boring game, but the Brentford and Villa one I kind of missed.
Yeah, I don't blame you on the West Ham Bournemouth one, but we'll start with the Villa Leeds one. A 1-1 draw, Villa at home. Kind of, I didn't watch the game. I watched back the highlights and, obviously what a free kick by Stach. Is that his name? How you pronounce it?
Yeah, Stash, I think, as well.
Yeah, caught Martinez out. I mean, game a little humbling there, but brilliant free kick there, and then Villa get the equalizer late in the second half. I think it was kind of like if I remember correctly, like a corner kick and just like a bobble around or a cross in or something like that. But Tammy Abraham with a goal there, and Villa kind of salvage a draw, but kind of hit that kind of stumbling block that we both, you and I, thought earlier in the season, a few match weeks ago, that they would hit. They've hit it in the last
Yeah.
few match weeks, so
They have. I actually thought they were gonna lose this game, like you said, it came in the 88th minute, and for especially for what we were playing at the same time, and we were winning 1-0 at the time before the red card. So I was kind of keeping an eye on that score for the third place, but we ended up tying the game, dropping points as well. So not so bad weekend because I think they will struggle, like you said, going forward. And it's interesting because like I'm just now looking at like Abraham and wondering is that their Duran replacement, or I swear they had who else did they have playing over Watkins at the start of the season?
uh,
Who was it?
Mullen got shipped out too.
Okay. Did they sell Marlon in January?
I don't know if they sold him, but I know he's at Roma. He might be on loan. I'm not positive if they sold him or not, but I know he's gone.
That's crazy because I swear he was like playing over Watkins for the longest time, at least probably like what 8 games in.
Yeah.
And I remember Watkins wasn't really the starter, and then he came, and of course he started scoring against us Chelsea, and then after then I think Watkins put him on the bench, and it was a change.
Well, it's been weird at Villa because I think I noticed Leon Bailey playing.
Yeah, I saw. I'm on YouTube and I see a video of him saying how he misses the dressing room. I'm like, I thought this brother was in Roma.
Mate, when I saw him playing for Villa, I was watching the highlights. You know the Ian Wright meme?
Yeah,
That was me, bro,
yeah,
because I was like, I thought this man was gone. So I don't
yeah,
know. I don't know, man, what happened. Villa's like, players going, coming, whatever the
yeah.
case is. But interesting 1-1 result, right? I know you gave it to Leeds, and I predicted a draw, and obviously the predictions. I'll be honest, I'm just throwing numbers out there. But what do you think this means for Villa? You think that they drop out of the top four?
I think for them, like we said, all these results can't really be negative for them because I mean, I don't think they have like a set standard of where they wanted to finish the season. It would be, I think, disappointing if they don't finish the season top four or get Champions League, but I don't think that they're going to be overly disappointed dropping these points because I think they're in a position that not even them themselves will kind of expect, especially at the start of the season. Obviously, everybody else kind of united now, catching in a good form, going to go in and probably challenge them for that position, but everybody else has been like slipping. So I think they'll take it if it's there. But I don't think it's something. I think they want Champions League. I don't know if they're going to be upset about third, fourth, or fifth, or whichever position get Champions League for them.
Do you think a successful season is them finishing sixth place but winning Europa League? Okay.
100%.
Yeah.
I think them finishing 11th place and winning Europa League is a great season for them. So I think, yeah, if you finish in third, like obviously for us top six club, it's good and the revenue and stuff going into the Champions League, and I'm sure they'd want some Europe as well. So Champions League if they could, but I think winning a trophy for them, regardless of the league finish, is always good because you got to think at the context of the club. Champions League is great, but I mean they're not gonna. I don't think in their wildest dream expecting to win the Champions League. So it would be kind of like a brand endorsement as it is for all of us and obviously the best competition as well. So
Yeah.
that, but I think realistically for them, winning any trophy in any season would probably be the top season for them.
Well, May, I will remind you of certain someone in North London who won the Europa League but got sacked as well. So,
Oh yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
why I had to ask.
Well, yeah, I think for but in context now in 2020, on hindsight, they probably are regretting that. I know it's very hard to say, but I think the club is probably regretting that. So it happens, as we know. Obviously they thought that they were going to take a step forward, but I think for us, like you said, we don't have emotional attachment to Villa, so we can see it from the outside and say them winning a trophy would be a great season for them, and whatever the league finish it is for them. I don't know what their standard is, so if they do win a trophy and fire their manager, I think that would be ridiculous. But also, it's not my call, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah. I agree. I'm kind of on that same boat with you. But, we can kind of move on to the next game, which interestingly enough, both of us gave it to Brentford. I gave it 1-0 and you gave it 2-0 to Brentford. And sure enough, this is typical Brighton fashion. They end up winning the game 2-0.
Yes, sir. And getting a clean sheet, which is crazy. Chicago's been kind of the alleged 24-year-old has been off the mark in the last couple games, I would say. Looks a little bit rusty, but yeah, I think for Brentford, same thing as Villa, having a great season. Obviously, not good when you lose, especially at home, but I think for them, it's one of those results where I think they'd be disappointed, obviously, with the performance. I think was that the week before that they played you guys?
Yeah, yeah.
So they probably be a little bit disappointed in performance from there, but I mean, it's Brighton. We all have lost to Brighton before, so I don't know if they can be that disappointed in it as much as how we're thinking about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, I get what you're saying. I mean, I wasn't like,
I'm
insanely
looking at the
shocked.
stats here, yeah, and it looks like Brentford should have probably just edged it, but Brighton took their chances. Their
Yeah,
XG was a 1.6, as you see, and Brentford was a 1.09. So
yeah.
yeah, I think maybe, but like we said, Thiago and just the attacking wise, which happens to those teams. It's no criticism on my end, to be honest, because you're not going to expect that they don't have the prolific players to go all season. I mean, even the top six players, our top six clubs don't have the prolific players to perform all season. So I think it may be just a mid-season little rust in front of goal. So yeah,
Well, and it looks like Keith Andrews might have rested some players. I mean, I'm just kind of looking at the stat sheet, and it looks like Sade came in the 46th minute. Damsgaard came in on the 67th. Just a
yeah,
couple of starters there, right? A couple of their key players this season left out in that first half, and sure enough, they conceded two in the first half, and then Brighton kind of not going to say sat back, but were more content to let Brentford have the ball and play with the ball as long as they're keeping it in front of them. So brilliant result for your boys at Brighton Munich.
yes, sir. Good result for them, I'm sure over there. They're happy moving them. Where are they now on the table? Just let me double check.
They're actually in
Yeah,
14th,
14th,
34.
34.
Yep.
Table's so close, man. Looking at 14th, and you think about 34, eighth is in 4 points ahead of them, 6 points. Good points for them. Yeah,
Yeah, I think I was looking at the table actually after this weekend, and all year we've been kind of saying that everything is staggered. I think we're finally starting to see some separation in the top six. Obviously Liverpool being in sixth on 45 points, so Brentford in seventh on 40. So I think that gap there between sixth and seventh will kind of start to increase. The further or the closer we get to the end of the season. But from seventh down, like you said, it's still staggered a bit, right? 2 points, 1 point separates all the way down each place, all the way down till about 15th. So there could be a lot of movement in and around there, and it's a lot of teams that have had some good spells throughout these seasons, some bad spells. Interesting enough, though, Bournemouth is kind of back in the top half after spending some time down there. But we'll discuss them when we get to them. Moving on though to the next game of the list that we have here, and it's your boys Chelsea at home hosting Burnley, and a 1-1 draw. Which I didn't watch this game, but I was kind of keeping tabs on the score. I think I don't remember which game I watched during this time, but I was keeping tabs on the Chelsea score, and sure enough, Chelsea get an early goal. João Pedro, which I think kind of deserves a shout out in a sense that he's had some decent numbers. I think he's 14 goals in all competitions this year for Chelsea. We'll discuss that a little bit later as well on my notes here. But a fourth minute goal, and then it just seems like Chelsea probably, I'm sure, threatened and found it difficult to break them down and get a red card in the second half, and Burnley kind of grow a little bit of confidence and sure enough get an equalizer at the end there.
Yeah, when you get a goal, especially so early at home in the fourth minute, you thought that the floodgates were going to get open. Well, they score a couple more. Nice little day at the bridge and would go away with the 3 points, but that wasn't to be. And I mean, it wasn't to my surprise. I think we created enough chances. The players, I would say, on the day, just Cole Palmer was a shadow of himself. He's been a shadow of himself, in my opinion, all season. Even when he did score the hat trick, I think, obviously, two of them being penalties and stuff. And it's no criticism to him, but he's just kind of, I don't know if it's an injury or whatever. I kind of had said it myself that he kind of definitely needs a period like this to come out of. Will he come out of it? I'm sure he will, but he just at the moment looks a shadow of himself. The team itself looks there's just like we've talked about, honestly. I wouldn't even say shadow of themselves. I think it's just been issues all season. And like you said perfectly at the start of the show, when you kind of remove the emotions, it just makes things easier. I still love and will always support my club, but I feel like at the moment, especially with the ownership and the stuff that we talked about, you can just see the direction that the team is heading in. And I know, obviously, on the day we could have won the game and things, the tone and everything else would have been a little bit different talking in this pod and everything. But I think just one of the worrying stats to even go on to touch on this game is that Chelsea haven't beat any of the newly promoted team this season. Leeds beat us, I remember that, because the other day we also dropped. We were 2-0 up in the last match, week 26, and dropped points to Leeds, and they beat us earlier. So that's 4 points to a newly promoted team. And obviously this weekend as well, dropping points to what, 18th place or 19th place Burnley in the Premier League is just not acceptable. But I think it's honestly just where the team is at the moment. When you see the stats, like I said, not beating any of the newly promoted team after spending so much, I think there's just question has to be asked for Chelsea, and I think it's something that we've mentioned and whilst, but I remember mentioning a couple weeks back, probably like 5, 6 weeks ago on the pod about just the way Villa was looking at the time and how we were, and it just kind of continued as you've seen. Like they were completely in control, should have probably won the game, had chances to win the game, but then you have to give it to Burnley, getting a man sent off, and I think also when you analyze and look at the red card, it was a second yellow, and the tackle was in Burnley's half. It wasn't even a tackle in our half where you're stopping a foul or stopping the ball or stopping them attacking your goal. It was just a silly mistake, and we can't even say maturity because some of these red cards, especially a lot of them this season, I mean, three of them that I can think of off the top of my head is Cucurella, Fofana, Sanchez, senior players that you would think about in the team. So, yeah, I think honestly, in my humble opinion, with all the emotions out, I think it's just where the team is at the moment. When you have Esteval was missing at the weekend, but when you have, I think Gittins is currently injured at the moment, but Garnacho, which I 100% support, by the way, hasn't played, I don't think, much since Liam has been in the Premier League. I don't know how many games, I'd have to get my stats right, but at least the last 3, 4 match week he hasn't been, not that he's not in the squad, but he's not in the starting, and we're almost playing almost like Pedro, which is a right winger. He can play on the left as well, but he's playing mostly shift over sometimes to the left, or if not, which think was weird. Not weird, but I think it sends the biggest message is we're playing Enzo Fernandez in the left wing position in one of the previous games as well, with spending almost 60, not 60, sorry, 100 plus millions on two wingers this last summer. Just kind of sums everything up that's going at the club right now. Obviously, things and times will change with growth and stuff, but I think it's just where the club is at the moment.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned Chelsea not picking up many points with the bottom teams, and I don't think that's just a Chelsea problem this year. I think it's an all-around problem. And I think it's because those teams, and we've said it before, not just those teams, but it seems an overall more competitive league this year than previous years. And I just want to read you some numbers, just for context, right? So we played 27 games this year so far. Wolves have played 28, but for the sake of this, let's say we're going to stick with the 27 because every other team is 27. West Ham is on 25 points, Burnley is on 19, and Wolves is on 10 points. That's your bottom bottom 3 teams, right? So 25, 19, and 10 after 27 games. If we go to last year, your bottom 3 teams after 38 games was 25, 22, and 12. So basically, when you look at that, unless those 3 teams lose the rest of their 11 games that they have left, it's a stronger bottom 3 than last year, right? If you wanna take it even further, go 23, 24, your bottom 3 teams are 26 points, 24 points, 16 points. So again, the same sort of point structure as this season is with 27 points, right? Or 27 games, sorry. So the bottom 3 teams this year have essentially outperformed the bottom 3 teams in the last 3, 4 years in the Premier League, and that's just what we looked at, and, I didn't pull up the rest of them, but I think it's just an overall more competitive league.
But my counter argument to that is, and I agree that the bottom team has improved. So I guess that's where I'm going to give credit. But I think there's not much separation with the top six teams anymore. I think the top six teams also have gotten weaker. So I don't think that they're as strong as you can say. So we can argue in that sense, and then I guess what I could argue and I could bring back is the Centurions with City and when Liverpool and them were fighting, and we could kind of talk about will the points there for champions and stuff. So I think, yeah, things have changed. Obviously, it will change, and I think it will go back as well. We will probably dip into a Centurion again, and then probably dip back out like normalized, which is what the league is right now, kind of 80, 70 points plus kind of give you the league or whatever the case might be. So I guess it's an argument for both sides in that sense because I think like yeah I get that argument, but it's there's not much. I think also the Big 6 teams have gotten weaker when we look at all around the Big 16. Like we're talking about, and I'm talking about the traditional what they would say in England, the traditional Big 6. So I don't know, but I definitely think the smaller teams have gotten better, but I don't know if I'm gonna argue that much as the fact that we don't have much players that separate us in the big teams, the big 16 from the smaller teams anymore. There's not much between. I'll pick a Garnacho and I love the guy that I watch at Wolves. I know he's gonna go down, but what's his name? The little one, he's short, always causing problems.
And I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, I forgot his name at the top of my head. I'll look it up, but
Is
I,
it is
I
it
don't think
Andre?
there's yes.
Yeah.
It's not much different between Andre and there is what's the other one's called? It's not Andre, it's Mane.
Mhm, Mane, yes.
Andre. Andre and Mane. There's not much in my humble opinion between Garnacho and Mane. And I know Garnacho is not the whole team, but in that element, if that makes sense. So that's where I would argue that it's also gotten weaker for the top six.
Well, and I think I agree with you for the best players, right? Like the star players. And I think I've seen a lot of times where people feel like, I've read kind of some criticism of Arsenal where they're like, we feel like they don't have a star player, right? But then you kind of look down the Premier League and I mean, you could argue that for any team, right? Like even City, right? I know City have Holland, which is a phenomenal goal scorer, but Holland doesn't create for himself like we expect a star player to, right? Go down the list and it's kind of like that for every team, like you're saying. So I agree in that sense. I do think though, while I think a lot of people think the quality of the top 6 has dropped, I think that also it's kind of like a scale, right? When you pick up weight from one side, the other side kind of goes up and down, right? And I think while the quality of the overall teams might have dropped, I think also the quality of the other teams have kind of increased a little bit, which makes it look even more closer than it should be. But it's gonna be interesting. I think it's gonna be interesting to see what happens in the next couple of years in the Prem because, I mean, I expect. I'm not even gonna talk about Arsenal because I don't want there to be any bias in there, right? But depending on what happens with City and their charges, and if Pep stays, and I expect City to kind of be challenging for at least the top 4 in the like next 4 or 5 years consistently, right? Be it that they're still in the Premier League. I expect United to strengthen. I think, they have to kind of eventually turn around and, not get back to the United that we're used to, but at least kind of get close to that point, kind of like Arsenal have done in the last 4 years, right? That turnaround. I expect the same thing of Chelsea. I expect Chelsea to eventually get it right and challenge too. And then, obviously Liverpool is there and they've spent big money. And so I think it's going to be an even more competitive. Like I don't see one team like or just 2 teams in the past, how we've seen in the past few years, kind of separate, and you know how, we get to calling it a two-horse race or a three-horse race. I think it's just going to get more competitive, and I think it's going to make for a better product in the Premier League, at least in that kind of top 5, 6 positions.
No, I listen, there's a lot of if, buts, and maybes, and I definitely agree with you in sense of some of these teams are going to grow. And I guess in the nature of what I'm saying is it's probably from my perspective from the outside one of the poorer seasons in terms of not that the top six are like not well, the top six are not really doing well. They're very inconsistent, I would say. And it's not to take any credit away from the top of the league or anything from the league. It's almost to just say it's from United is obviously picking up a couple points now and they're in a good form and looking good, spot on for the top four. But I think we've seen from, and now even with Arsenal in the past couple games, but if we take Arsenal in the past couple of games out, everyone below that just kind of had like an up and down season. So yeah, like you said, I expect them to kind of come back and fight and be like neck and neck and kind of give whoever's at the top and those top four races a lot more, tougher battles as we've seen like Liverpool, even to give a perfect example, like they are probably having one of the most bipolar season. And when you think about it, they are on tied on points right now with Chelsea for fourth and just behind on goal difference. So I think it's just, I guess what we're saying is not that it's not deserving for the top team this season, but this season is one of the poorest I've seen from everyone else. And obviously makes those bottom team look a lot better because of the points and where they are. We have to also think that, with Wolves and Burnley, it's not impossible for them to lose the rest of their games. West Ham is doing a little bit better and picking up some form with the signings that they've made in the January transfer window. So for them, they can pick up more points and kind of break that barrier. But I don't think it will be impossible for Wolves and Burnley to stay on the same points that they are. So then it kind of just shows that it hasn't those two maybe haven't improved, and maybe we've had like one of the bottom three that's really improved. We still don't know. Times to tell. So yeah, I guess that's where I stand on that. I still believe like Arsenal is the team that deserves to win. But I think even in their last 7 games, they've showed the inconsistency. What I'm trying to explain, not necessarily in like a big gap up over years, but this year specifically, I think has been one of the poorest quality season I've seen in return of the Barclays. So I don't know.
I see what you're saying, and I actually kind of agree with you in the sense that we've seen, if we're comparing the top 6 teams, right? We've seen the top 6 teams have sporadic results, and I think that we've never really seen as sporadic as results that we've seen this year, right? And that kind of goes to back to like, I know this is a very bad example because it's Spurs, but Spurs draw to City and then they go lose their next 3, 4 games, right? Chelsea beat Liverpool, draw to City, and then go and tie Leeds and tie Burnley at home. You know what I mean? And I think that kind of, when I look at it in that perspective, I think that's true. Like Arsenal too, right? The league leaders at the moment, right? Lose or not lose, draw after being up 2-0 away to Wolves, the last place team who was sitting on 9 points at the time. So I think that puts it in perspective, and I agree with you. I think that it's very very sporadic, and in that sense, yeah, absolutely. I don't remember another season that has been of similar nature. I'm interested to see how it finishes in terms of points total, right? Just to compare it to last season, right? Just because last season is fresh in everyone's minds and we kind of still have the narratives about most of the teams, but I'm interested to see the points total of, the bottom 3 of the top 4, what gets you 4th place. Like, when we look at last season, 4th place, Chelsea finished on 69 points. So that's 29-9. And this season we have 4th place after 27 games, 48 points, 13, 9, and 5. So, you could very well see United losing another 4 games and winning another 7 to kind of match that Chelsea record from last season, right? So let's see what kind of how they move forward and close the season out. That kind of brings us into the West Ham Bournemouth game and what seems like a boring result. I didn't watch the game obviously, but a 0-0 result. Looking at the stats, I mean, it looks like West Ham kind of, Bournemouth had the possession, but West Ham had the numbers in terms of everything else.
Yeah, 20 shots for West Ham. I mean, only 3 on target to 10 for Brentford and 5 on target. looked like they should have scored all three of their goals from this XG right here. I wasn't able to check the game out, and watching the highlights, I didn't pick up on how much I could really say about this game besides what I'm seeing from the stats here. And I hate to kind of be like that person, to be fair. But yeah, it's looking like West Ham should been the one that probably should. I mean, it was at home for them, and they've been, like we said, on decent point. But I mean, a clean sheet and a point is also not the end of the world for them.
Yeah, looking at the stats though, and again, like you said, I hate to just kind of go based off of stats because I've watched games and look at the stats and kind of not believe my eyes on what I've seen in terms of watching the game and comparing to stats. But looking at just the stats, right? I think West Ham probably feel like they could have gotten 3 points here, and obviously it would have helped them a lot. Would have actually brought them in front of Forest, but or level with Forest on points. But a point's not bad, like you said. I think that they take it and they move on and they try and pick up points elsewhere.
Yeah, I still think for them, I mean, we always speak from the outside, so we can never really speak for these people. But I still think for them, there's, like you said, lots of games to go, 11 games left, a clean sheet. Forest is not giving much hope. I mean, we can also rope Spurs into that, Leeds also. So we know all of those teams that we just mentioned, all four of those teams, including West Ham, is not going to win all of their 11 games remaining. It will be interesting. Expect them to lose. We expect them to win some games. We expect them to pick up some draws along the way. So I do think that West Ham will beat that point, like we were saying. In terms of, I think they will be. Well, it could be. I do think West Ham will beat the point, but then I guess there could be, Nottingham Forest or Forest that could be the worst team or the team that gets down. So I do think West Ham will get the 30-point barrier. Will it be enough? I don't know. I think they will break into that 30-point barrier though, especially with the signings that they have made in the some winter transfer window.
Yeah, I can see that as well. It's gonna be interesting to see. I'd love to see kind of like I don't know if you can call it a great escape if West Ham make it out, but I think it'll make it interesting down there at the bottom. It's tough losing either one of those teams if you're kind of like a Prem fan, just because West Ham and Forest have been in the league for a couple years and kind of have given us some great games watching throughout the seasons. But I think if I kind of had to put money on it, I would put money on West Ham beating Forest to stay up, and for a number of different reasons. But I think just overall the fact that they, like you said, they invested some money. I trust their manager. Obviously, I'm not going to say anything in terms of I think Victor Pereira is a good manager, but I think Nuno's been there, since almost the beginning of the season, right? Had longer time, got in some players. I don't know. I feel like I'd back West Ham to kind of, it's a 2 point gap. I'd back them to overcome Forest just based off of kind of history, which some people might argue for the top end of the table. But let's see, Bournemouth on the flip side. I know we kind of discussed them a little bit, but it's interesting to look at the table and kind of see them on the top half after seeing them a few places above relegation, maybe like 6, 7 games ago.
Yeah, but being so tight there, not surprised by anything, to be fair. And I mean, a solid season for them so far. I mean, obviously they went on downwards a little bit throughout the middle of the season and still are trying to find solutions for the players that they've lost. But I think a decent season, a good return for them, and the table's looking okay for them right now, the 20 plus games. So a good return for them considering what they've lost so far.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just looking at their fixtures and not counting the FA Cup game, but remember that horrible patch that they went where they didn't win a game since October 26th. And the last game that they lost in that horrible patch was January 3rd at home to Arsenal. Since then, they beat Spurs at home 3-2. They got a point away to Brighton. They beat Liverpool at home 3-2. They beat Wolves away 2-0. They tied Villa. They beat Everton 2-1, and they just tied West Ham 0-0. Those are some good results. I mean, that's like what, 9 games on the bounce?
Yeah, picking up points along the way, like we
Yeah.
said. So you find yourself 8 points, I mean, eighth place, 38 points, 2 points behind Brentford, two of the teams that we give some credit to. I know for Brentford, we haven't seen them hit that slump as bad as what we've seen from Bournemouth, but still good credit for Bournemouth to keep themselves in that race there. And like you said, not winning every single game, but also not losing. You know what I mean? So picking up points and just kind of trying to get into Europe, I'm sure, for them. So yeah, decent return.
Yeah. I mean, I think that just shows you again how impressive their start of the season was. But we'll see kind of how they finish off this end of the season along with West Ham there. But moving on, moving down the list, City 2-1. You said you watched this game. What'd you think?
Yeah, I was able to watch this game. A very nervous game from City. Even the commentator said, I mean, they started well. Nico O'Reilly. It was O'Reilly, right?
Yes, yeah, I actually saw
Yeah.
that goal, and it was actually a good goal. I was watching the goal, and I was thinking to myself, how come our outside backs don't score goals like this?
You know what's funny? I scrolling through Twitter at the same time when that goal was scored. It's like someone tweeted was like City has bunch of kids and they're all good.
Always, always, right?
Like they're always all good, bro, which is like crazy. But I mean, he's been playing in City side for a while, so I kind of understand if you don't watch City enough, you kind of might
Yeah,
not know. But he's been playing for a while, so the experience. But I think Newcastle made it difficult for City on the day, obviously tying the game up, gotten it to 1-1, and before O'Reilly scored again in the 27th minute there. But I think it was not obviously the vintage City that we know, and not something surprising, I don't think, for either of us because we've kind of said that. I mean, I just said it like not even 10 minutes ago about, the inconsistency of the rest of the league. So, especially with City, I know they went out and did the signing in the summer, but I would say a very nervous performance from them, not something very threatening from Newcastle point of view, where they were kind of always, knocking on the door. But I think putting pressure on City, and you could tell even Erling Haaland just doesn't look like himself at the moment. A couple of chances that typically, I mean, a good save from the goalkeeper on I believe, like the first one, I believe was in the first half. But I would think that, the Haaland of last season in that position 1v1, where he just kind of kicked it, I believe, right against the defender. Just you could tell from the body language of just watching him, not just him, but the whole City team, that it's just not a fluent City team. So I know it will make the end of the season kind of interesting because we also touch on Arsenal, but yeah, very nervous performance from City, and I would say also an improved performance from Newcastle because they've kind of been under it for the past couple, I wouldn't even say past couple games, but all season kind of been an up and down season for them. So a good performance. They weren't able to get the goal that tied up on the day, but yeah, I think a solid performance from Newcastle and a more nervous performance from City, but getting the 3 points to close the gap on Arsenal is always good for them, I'm sure, especially at this point of the season.
yeah, I agree. I think it's interesting. I watched up until the City goal, and I had to step out for a little bit, so I didn't get to see the rest of it. But obviously, I was checking it periodically on my phone, and I didn't get to see kind of in that first, I'd say, in what minute did Nico Riley score? It was early on. I mean, 14th minute. So I watched the first 14 minutes, and in the first 14 minutes, I thought City looked. I don't want to say like extremely comfortable, but they didn't look bad. I mean, I didn't. Newcastle didn't really have anything. It was just City possession. So I didn't get to see this part of kind of discomfort that you're mentioning. So I'm just gonna have to take your word for it. But it's an interesting result. I mean, Newcastle, like we've said all season, Newcastle hasn't had the greatest season, but it's still difficult, right? It's still a difficult game for anyone. It was interesting that I saw. I don't know if this has been going on recently, but Joe Ellington on the bench, that was kind of a shock for me. I kind of feel like he's one of their better, more physical players in that midfield. So that was interesting. I did read a little bit about some of the controversies in this one, the offside goal, and how people were saying that they feel like, or they were applying some rule. I don't know if you saw the rule where it's like if you push the guy and the guy's offside, then it's a foul. And I'm thinking to myself, like, that's insane because how much more diving can we take on like free kicks and stuff where it's like you might in slow motion you slow it down and you see that the person's hands is on the person and you call foul. Whatever the case is, I honestly don't think that should be a penalty. I think it's like really, really soft to be honest. But just something I saw out there. I will tell you though, I think Bernardo Silva was lucky to stay on the pitch. I don't know if you saw I guess he was on a yellow card and he jumped straight into Dan Burn, shoulder into the chest with no attempt to play the ball. It's nowhere, and somehow he like
I actually missed that. I did not see that.
it's when I saw that and a yellow card wasn't shown, I was shook because man, the ball wasn't even like it wasn't even like he wasn't staring at the ball first of all because the ball was coming behind his back, and the dude just jumps in straight into Dan Burns' chest and like shoulder into the chest, and obviously like he doesn't do much to Dan Burn because it's Bernardo Silva and Dan Burn, right? Like the giant and the short person. But I was shocked I didn't see that as a yellow card. Look at it, and let me know offline what you think. But whatever the case is, I think obviously I think it was an important victory for City. Obviously they didn't know that Arsenal was going to win, but it was important to kind of put that pressure on them. And from the Arsenal perspective, would you like there to be a bigger gap? Yeah, absolutely. But I always say this, and I kind of equate it to like, when people talk about the Champions League draws and they're like, oh, we want this team, we want this team. It's usually the weaker teams. And I'm like, I always say, man, it doesn't matter what team you get because you're gonna have to play the better ones at the later stage anyways. Why not knock them out earlier? And I kind of equate that to the title we're in now, right? Where it's like you're only 2 points behind, which, you would love to have a greater distance, but if you're gonna win it, you're gonna win it. So you have to go out there and perform, right? And I think that that's important. I think that if Arsenal can overcome that, I think it'll be, in my eyes, very impressive in the fact that I've seen them be in similar positions or even in better positions and kind of start quivering and shaking later on and eventually fall short. But to see that growth and to see them overcome that hump and what you and I talked about last week in terms of the nerves and everything, to see them overcome that, I think would be very impressive and would kind of, obviously it's the first title if they win it in 22 years or 24 years or whatever it is. But I think that it would make it that much more impressive, the fact that, it's not a vintage city, but it's a city that they failed in similar positions twice before in the last 3 years. And to come over and kind of, finally overcome that hurdle, I think I would be impressed with that.
Yeah, I think so as well. I mean, there's lots of ways to look at it. Obviously, I'm not an Arsenal fan, so there's different perspective obviously to take on it. And you've been there more than us. So like we said, you probably know better. We'd obviously touch on Arsenal more once we get to the game that they play later in that week. But like I said, I think it was not a vintage city, hasn't been a vintage city, kind of up and down. And for the first 14, yeah, they were on top for the first goal. But I think, normally, especially a city like that, you kind of expected them to kind of just score the third and fourth goal. And they had the opportunity, in my opinion, too. But I believe just from the nerves, like I said, from even Erling himself, just didn't look like himself there. So I think that's interesting there. And then also to touch on the Bernardo Silva part, I wasn't able to see it, but I think one thing I've seen this season, honestly, bro, is every fan, and it's always like that, honestly. So it's not even just this season, but every fan looks at what they want to see in the Prem and kind of find what they want to find. Because like I've seen so many things happen in the league that I think, like I said a couple weeks back, even Jadrillas used a team that's not mine, but the Arsenal one, the Gabriel one. When I remember when he got the first yellow card from the slide in the first half, and in the second half, I think the second half yellow, the slide was worse than the one in the first, and he
The
didn't. And
Brentford game?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
and I think it was the ref trying to protect it. And I also remember, I believe, like even in the I think it was whatever the Carabao Cup where we played Arsenal, there was like a Zubamendi tackle on someone where he completely just like it was like a technical tackle, but he didn't hit anyone, and he didn't hit the ball. Like, but you can watch a tackle where he was so far from the ball, he was just slowing the play down, and the ref kind of let the play go. Honestly, no call, no nothing. So I think like you get to see perspective, to be fair, bro. Like, and I've seen a lot in the league. So I think everyone kind of focus on what obviously, to help their team and what the case might be. But I honestly think the officiating is just poor, mate. Honestly, like I don't even know if these geezers are trying to like favor a team or whatever the case might be. I think it's just poor because I've seen lots of missed calls. I've seen missed calls with Liverpool, watching Liverpool. But you and I talk offline, and I think the one thing I'll say to kind of just end this, I think, is the referee, like we said offline. I think they officiate based on reputation, 100%. Like if there's
Yeah.
one thing I've seen this season is that they officiate based on like reputation 100% because the tackle, like I said, the same tackle, I believe, the Zubamendi one, and I'll send it to you. Like, take the emotional. I think if a Caicedo does that, he's for sure getting a yellow or probably something more serious. And it's not that it's that serious because it was but I think it was a technical enough for at least a yellow card, not a
Yeah.
red, but a yellow. But like the fact that the ref let it go and nothing was even called. And like we said, sometimes we just don't even know what's a foul in the league anymore.
Yeah.
It's not even against Arsenal, it's against every team that I've watched.
I think what makes it even worse, and I'll be honest with you, is the fact that you see the same challenge on back-to-back weeks, and you see it ref 2 different ways. And I completely
Not
understand.
even back. It's like you see it on Sunday and Monday, it's
Yeah.
different. I promise you, bro. That's the crazy part about
I
it.
completely understand, like, there's 2 different interpretations, like, you and I are 2 different people, right? We have 2 different interpretations of the same thing, but I think when you add VAR and there's 2 officials on VAR, I think when you put 3 brains together, right, to come to a decision, you should always kinda come to the same decision, right? I should average out to the same decision because it's multiple people giving their opinions, right? And I don't know, man, like, I even think back to, I don't know if you remember a couple weeks ago, the Foden challenge when they were playing Wolves, I think, where he kind of just treads on the back of the Wolves player, studs down the calf, and that same thing was given as a red card, I think, the weekend before to a Spurs player, or it might have been in the same weekend or something. I don't remember exactly what it was. It was a few weekends ago, but I honestly, man, I think the officiating has been absolutely horrendous. Probably the worst year, given last year too. I mean, some of the penalties that were awarded last year were jokes, but this year it's not just penalties, it's like all around. I don't know. What's funny is we'll talk about it when we get to the Arsenal game, and just remind me, and just in case I forget. But it was very, very interesting because there was a challenge in the Arsenal game that was the same exact challenge as the City one that City got a penalty at Liverpool, where the player gets his shot off and it's not saved by the goalkeeper, I don't think, or anything. It just went out, but the defender coming clears him out as soon as he gets the shot off, right? And there's not even like a shout for VAR or anything. And I'm just like, I'm watching it, and you can picture my face, I'm just kind of watching, and I'm waiting for the VAR check. I'm waiting for the commentator, and like 20 seconds goes by, nothing. 30 seconds goes by, nothing. A minute goes by, nothing. And I realize that like they didn't even take a look at it. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, are you kidding me? You know what I mean? Like, did I miss something? Like, should I rewind it and watch it again? So I don't know, man. It's been like that. Let's see what happens. Let's hop into the Crystal Palace Wolves game, and a 1-0 victory for Crystal Palace. Again, I didn't watch this game, but looking back at the stats, what I did find funny after this game though is the fact that Bournemouth or Brentford's last game was Arsenal. They managed to get a point. Wolves' last game in the league was Arsenal. They managed to get a point, and they both go and lose their next game. Just
Yeah,
interesting
but
to
you
me.
can't bro, the Premier League is like that, bro. You honestly I look at it like that as well, but and I know obviously people are gonna look at it, trolls and stuff, and as an opposition fan, sometimes it is, but you can't like we said, we just explained it like we said, even with Chelsea not beating any of those newly promoted teams, sitting in fourth place in the league right now. So yeah, it kind of is the Premier League, bro. It's always like that every season, to be fair. I think this season more than ever, but yeah, it's the Premier League, man, and it's a lot to do now. We're obviously older, but as we see the league here, it's a lot to do with mentality. And, obviously it's like we said, it's very hard to change perception of how someone is, especially for like in the case of like the Wolves where they're already going down. Like I know they're gonna fight and try not to be the worst team, but I think they obviously all those players are already checked out. So yeah, it's just it's I don't know. It's obviously going to the Emirates and to Stamford Bridge and Old Trafford and to the City Ground, to the Etihad Stadium and to Spurs and all those whatever you consider historic grounds in England is gonna kind of bring out the performance more from those teams. I think mentally, in other games they're already checked out. That's the only way I could kind of analyze it. I could see why that would make sense in my opinion, obviously, but yeah, I wouldn't even look at it in that way. It's just a Premier League.
Yeah. Well, interesting enough, they actually missed a penalty in this game, Wolves, and then they got a red card in the second half, which I think obviously didn't help them. I think it was a second yellow for kicking the ball away, which is a whole nother thing because I can guarantee you we can go through all these other games, and if we don't find at least I'm gonna say minimum 3 instances where a player kicks the ball away after the whistle, minimum 3 games, then I don't my name is not Arlen, right? Every single game I watch, this happens, and it feels like they pick and choose when to enforce it and when not to enforce it, which, drives me insane.
Literally, bro.
I don't understand it. Like, I wish, you know what I wish? I wish at the end of the season, I think every Premier League team should put a tape together of the decisions that went against them, and that should be sent to the Premier League board, and they should be asked to explain those decisions and why those decisions took place.
Post them on Twitter, bro.
Post them on
They
Twitter.
they
Do whatever you
they'd
want.
hate that. Yeah, they'd hate it. Just post it. Just you remember? I remember. I think Chelsea did that. For Liverpool. I don't remember. I think
I know what you're
Conte.
talking about. I know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
and they posted it, man. I think you should just that. Hey, they would hate to see me in these management, mate, because I would literally chop all those videos up with no context, no tweet behind, nothing, and just post it.
Oh,
And
I'm going straight to the media room after the game. I'm letting you know, win, lose, or draw. We're going straight. I would be in my Mourinho like era against these referees, man.
yeah, but I think it's deeper than that. So obviously, and we don't want to make it an excuse about the refs, especially on here, because I think for the most part, obviously, it's difficult to find refs. So these people are obviously trying, but I think for a sport, for a league that's so massive, I get it's to each interpretation, but it's too massive not to be uniform. And like you said, I can't even remember the game. I don't know if it's the Arsenal game or what game I watched this weekend, but I saw a player just throw the ball back away. I literally in my head, I didn't think about what you said, the Wolves game, because I didn't watch, but I thought about the Declan Rice situation. That
Last
was,
year,
yeah, I thought
yeah.
was a lot less simpler in that moment. And I saw nothing happen to the player. So, yeah, I don't know, mate. Like I said, most of the time.
Yeah, I think the way you explained it though is spot on. I think to say we just want consistency and application, I think that's all any of us ask for, right? And like you said, I think it's difficult to kind of come out and say biased or anything like that towards specific team. I do think that they referee um based on reputation, like you said, but I don't know, it's tough for me to kind of accept the bias, I can't do that. So I don't know, we'll see. I mean, every season, it seems like we get to the end of the season, we get to summer, and we're basically, given kind of this, "Oh, the referees this year are gonna be doing this and this and this," so let's see what that is this summer. Moving down the list here, next one we had is the Liverpool or I should say Forest Liverpool game, and Liverpool escape with a 1-0 victory and a goal in the 90 plus 7 minutes. Forest were at home, and it seems like they actually had a decent first half. I didn't watch this game, but I spoke to a couple guys about this game, and everyone was kind of consistent in the fact that in the first half, Liverpool were awful, and maybe Forrest deserves some credit there for, maybe being better. I watched a bit of the second half, kind of in and out, and naturally Liverpool kind of, I guess had more of the momentum in the second half and, got a goal late on, in added time there, but an important 3 points for them given, context of everything around them.
Yeah, I wasn't able to catch this game myself, so I didn't see much, but I think an improved performance from Liverpool, I would say. I wouldn't even say improved because I didn't see the game, but I know they've been conceding a lot of goals, so I would say definitely improve on that area there. I also had Allison in my FPL, so I was looking for him to kind of keep me a clean sheet there. So obviously, a decent return there. They dropped some points last week that would have put them in vital positions for the top four race. So good for them. And then for Forest, like you said, probably a better first half based on like what I'm seeing here, and the highlights that I was able to catch. And then Liverpool, what kind of sums up why they're in the position that they're in this season, right? After nearly just missing out on Champions League last season, they find themselves in the bottom half of the table this part of the season. So yeah, it's difficult, but I think it kind of just the game itself sums up both teams and where they're at the moment. Obviously improved from Liverpool to get a clean sheet and finding the winner in the last minute there, and then Forest, even though probably was the better team in the first half, just lacking what they've been lacking all season, creativity or just an idea or something in front of goal.
Yeah. I think you summarized it perfectly, to be honest. I think, you know, given the kind of the dominance, I guess you can say, in the first half by Forest, you would have expected sort of any other team in the league, and maybe not any other team, but some of like the better teams, if they have that dominance to at least get a goal from it. And I can't help but watch these games, and I always kind of have this same feeling where, I see a team dominate, and you just know, especially this season out of all seasons, that there's going to be the flip of that in the game where the other team is going to push a little bit harder. And I always say to myself, like, if you miss that period of dominance and you don't get a goal, chances are you're gonna live to regret it. So kind of what happened in this game, but nonetheless, good 3 points for Liverpool. They move on, and I don't know who they play next weekend. West Ham, so a good chance for them to get another 3 points there and put some more pressure on United and Chelsea around them. And you're right in the sense that I know you said you didn't watch the game, but I think they have started playing better since the turn of the new year. They're not like as expansive as we saw them at times last season, but I think they're a little bit more compact, and that's just kind of what they needed, right? So I think credit to them and their sort of I know a lot of people won't like to hear this, but credit to them and sort of their management for trying to shore up that defense and realizing where the problem is, right?
I mean, yeah, but why wouldn't they? I mean, we try to obviously we have our teams that we support, but we try to be as unbiased as we can at times. So obviously, there will still be bias for human beings that comes into it. But I mean, from the human or from the outside point of view, just looking at it, they've obviously been improving. They're not going to be the same Liverpool as we know, and I think they've shown that the start of the season coming into where we're at the moment. But it's also we can be understanding that some of the players like Wirtz has been finding his feet lately. I know they're still missing some other player, but Kirk has had a rough start. Him and Wirtz for sure. Ekitike has always been bright, but players finding their feet, system starting to look a little bit better. Obviously, they're missing a big player. Not missing a big player, but it's an off season that we know that's normal for Mohamed Salah. So, when you're missing that, Van Dijk with the performance that he's had, we've talked about it here on the show. Konate as well. Kirk as we just touched on with him and Wirtz, their up and down performance, especially in the early part to start the season. So yeah, I think it's just honesty, obviously, and yeah, they've been doing well, so you have to give them credit. I don't think it's anything in terms of any bad blood or anything. It's just credit where credit's due, pretty much.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% I agree. And that kind of moves us to another game where I think we have to give, Fulham credit. Next game is a Sunderland Fulham game.
Hey, my team of the week, mate.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't even think we need a conversation about that, to be honest. I mean,
We gotta give it to them. I think it's not easy for anyone to put three past Sunderland.
yeah, yeah, this will be our first Fulham team of the week, and I think they deserve it because I think I've given them a lot of stick in recent weeks, but I think they still have some good players, and to come off of that game to City and obviously lose by a healthy margin there, to come back and go away to Sunderland, who is another one of the top performing teams this season in the league, and who were in front of Fulham before this game in the table, and for Fulham to go there and win and kind of jump over Sunderland, I think deserves major props and major respect. I think that's probably only their what is it, second or third loss at home for Sunderland this season. So not a well, actually no, that's only their second loss at home this season for Sunderland.
Is it?
Fulham, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's impressive.
I don't know who their other loss was Liverpool, which was the last time out in the Prem. But
Okay.
other than that, they have not lost at home this season. Interesting enough, though, Fulham actually beat them in November when they played at Craven Cottage. So Fulham just
Oh,
have their number this season.
I guess Fulham just had, but it's always like that, especially with sometimes those newly promoted teams are just some of those teams at the bottom, like, they'll come up and they'll give us a tough game, one of the top six, and then next week again they go and play, a team in and around the areas that they are and lose the game horribly. So I guess it's just kind of is what it is in that moment, in that point.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, we'll see kind of how they navigate the rest of what is left of this season. Obviously, I think, safe, don't have to worry about anything. In terms of relegation, maybe try and see if they can just finish as high as they possibly can. And hopefully get Marco Silva some players in the summer, right? Convince him to stay, get him some more depth and, see if they can go out again. Next up, we had the North London derby, Spurs Arsenal, and 4-1 again for Arsenal.
My boy, I know my boy X is heated, mate.
You
I
know,
watched the build up to this game and it was like, how he's setting it up and he's like, I have two things left to do for the rest of the season, mate. Avoid relegation and take points off the Arsenal blood. But he always sets those up so perfect, bro. That man has got to be the funniest man on YouTube at the
he's
moment.
great. He's great, man. I really enjoy watching him. I know, obviously like Spurs Arsenal thing, but he's a top guy. He's
I
a top
saw I
guy.
saw a YouTube comment and I could relate how they go Spurs don't deserve X and I was like that's
Yeah,
something I definitely can agree with, mate. They don't deserve you, mate. You
yeah,
need a team that can give you some happiness at least sometimes in your life.
yeah. Well, and you could argue that X wouldn't be X if he wasn't a Spurs fan.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess so as well. So I guess you're
Um,
right there.
yeah, but definitely not a great day for him and the rest of the North London side. Did you watch this game? Were you able to catch it?
Yes, sir. I watched this game from start to finish.
Nice. What'd you think?
I mean, kind of what I expected because Tottenham has just been poor. You know, good, obviously, based on in context of for Tottenham, not the best, but in context of Arsenal dropping points in their last couple games, it was a good performance, a good return. And then obviously, especially with Tottenham getting the equalizer for 1-1, like right after you guys scored the first there, I kind of felt like, you know, maybe that would have played into the game a little bit, nerves and stuff. But good for you guys to kind of just pull away and some good goals, some a great goal. I forgot it was the first goal at the top of the box from Gyökeres. Eze obviously seems to just have a personal hate for Spurs itself. So yeah, I think it was a good game. A deserved obviously performance from Arsenal. A deserved win, I would say, but kind of what I expected from Spurs. Not to take credit away from Arsenal, but yeah, they're just a little bit shocking at the moment and kind of, what we'd say, just lacking of identity, I would say, probably.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's hard to Spurs, I'll say kind of in the beginning of when I started watching the Prem, they were kind of this outskirt team, like this outlier where, they would have some decent players that would just eventually, play well enough and get moves elsewhere. I mean, like, you think back to like Michael Carrick, Berbatov, Modric, Bale, like, kind of like the early days in the Prem when I at least started watching them, right? And they developed into this team where, they were one of the serious top four contenders and, maybe not seriously, but challenge for the title, at least the year where Leicester won it, right? Got to a Premier or not a Premier League, got it to a Champions League final, I think with Harry Kane and Son, and they built a decent team around those two. They were good for a while, and then it just seems like they hit a downward spiral where you're right, you can't really pinpoint an identity on that team. I mean, you can't see what they're trying to do. You can't see. It's hard to believe that they spent the money that they spent on certain players, right? And you almost like rivalry aside, you almost feel sorry for the players. Like they just because they look like they just look like they don't know what to do. They don't know what they're doing as a team. And it's not just this game. I mean, it's plenty of games that I've watched them throughout the season where
I,
they seem lost.
like you said, they are probably the perfect example of the modern ownerships and what they probably would want. A great stadium, I'm sure good business return. Like they're always turning a profit over there, or possibly. I'm allegedly, I'm not sure. But yeah, I think it's kind of just the model of what the new ownerships would want, right? A team. I'm not gonna say all new ownerships, but it's just been a business model for the past as however long as I've known it. So I think like you said, it's been a struggle for them. They've had bits and pieces or years where they done good, but they've never been consistently besides the Poch era that we can remember, in my opinion, that where they've been consistently good. And even in then, they were still lacking little details to kind of take them up to challenge for the bigger trophies. So it's just progressively probably have gotten worse over the years. So it looks a lot worse now. But yeah, I don't think it's like what we said. I think it's just a little bit of lack of identity in terms of what even after the press conference after the game, right? The manager is asking what is the goal of the team and stuff. And I know we just touched on it and how we love X and how he brings like, laughter to us and stuff. But even when we think about it, like let's take him aside or whatever, but we think about if it's not this season, Man City, but even last season, that team or that club, I won't say the team, but the club was willing to almost lose the game to Man City in order to kind of not see Arsenal win, which is I get the rivalry in that sense and in the funny part, but it's like, almost when are you gonna have some ambition for yourself to kind of
Hmm.
do something other than not, turn up for a game and hoping that the team beats you so that they can beat your rival to the trophy. So I think that kind of sums them up just perfectly. Like you said, it almost is, you understand it from the outside when you take our clubs out of it and all the, the rivalry and stuff, but you definitely see what it stands for when, fan base and a club itself is okay losing games and not necessarily affecting the title race by trying to win games. I think everybody else, for us, we want to take points off Arsenal, but at the same point, when we go back to the Etihad, if we do, I'm sure we'd want to take points off City as well. We don't look at the title race in terms of wanting someone to roll over us because we have something that we want to achieve at the end of the day. And I think Spurs kind of just not winning trophy, obviously, winning trophies and stuff breed that mentality, but Spurs kind of just lack that at the moment. And from top to bottom, it's kind of showing.
Yeah. Funny enough, I remember when we played them in preseason this year, I think somewhere in Asia. And I think that I don't remember exactly what the score was, but I don't think we beat them. I think they might have beaten us or it might have been a draw. And I remember thinking to myself, I was like, dang, I was like, Spurs look good. And I know, it's preseason and you try not to kind of make a big deal out of preseason, but I think as a fan of this game, it's tough to kind of look at it or watch a game and not try and dissect it and not try and see sort of where it went wrong and kind of have that attachment to it. So it was interesting for me because they looked very good overall, and injuries might be a part of the why they are where they are this season, right? But it's injuries, like you and I like to always say, you can only blame to a certain extent, right? Because that's what a squad is there for. In their case, I mean, I think they have like 11 players out injured. So I know it's still tough and to kind of judge them on that. But then you look at their season last season and it's almost an identical replica of this season. You can't help but wonder, maybe it's not an injury thing. Maybe it's a club thing and how the club's run. And like you said, the new ownership models and everything. I did read something where I think Conor Gallagher was their highest paid player in terms of wage structure at around £200,000 a week. They were basically, the post was trying to say that the ownership at Spurs was kind of not shocked, but they were looking at their wage structure and they were like, we can afford to add some big wages here because we don't have a lot in wages, right? But the thing is now it's like you have to attract that player, right? And if they go into this season with no Champions League football, no European football, it's going to be tough. It's going to take a tough financial loss, but also in terms of attracting players, right? So it'll be interesting to see kind of what their summer is like, who they bring in as their full-time manager, where they finish. I don't think they'll relegate, which I know some people have been kind of like poking fun at, but we'll see. We'll see what happens with them.
Yes, sir. We can
Uh,
only see. I mean, yeah,
yeah,
so can only see from this one.
yeah. Last up, we have the Monday game. I mean, I think this was a Monday game on the reverse side of the fixture when it was played at Old Trafford, which ended 1-0 to Everton.
Yeah, they had
But
to change this, didn't they?
yeah, 1-0 to United. Interesting. It seemed like it was a cagey affair. I did watch, like, it was in and out, to be honest, but it seemed cagey. Ultimately, it took a Seshko goal came on in the second half, and a goal made by United's summer signings that I just kind of previously mentioned. I think it was Cunha to Embuemo, and Seshko showed a great turn of pace to get in behind and basically tap it in.
Yeah, I think it was a good performance from United. I've been really impressed with them recently, just the way they've been performing, like I said earlier on the show. Obviously, not the five in a row, drawing the last game to West Ham, but when you put it in the context that they were losing that game, I think, you just seen the turn of form since Carrick has come in. The boys seem to be enjoying themselves. So honestly, I've been really impressed with them. I was really impressed with the goalkeeper because I was able to catch his game from start to finish. And yeah, I was happy. I think I was even though going for it, because I know even going into the game, even considering that, we're both fighting for top four at the moment, so them dropping points would be beneficial for us. On the flip side, I was honestly happy just kind of watching them be more of a solid team, kind of, I would say a little bit similar to what we touched on about Liverpool earlier. Because typically, especially I think under Emery, they either tie or lose this game. So just to see them stuck in there, dig out, come away with a clean sheet and also win the game away from home, I think, yeah, it was an impressive performance. And I'm really, like you said, we've all been impressed with the summer signings. The one that's really caught my eye recently, along with Sesko, I think has been Embuemo. I think has been really
Yeah.
for them. I've always kind of had the feeling that Cunha could be a top player, and he would be a good player there, especially with his personality and how he started. I think that would be good for him. So he has always been okay for me, but I think Embuemo and obviously Sesko coming off the bench recently, scoring goals for them has been really impressive. And overall, they've just looked like a good unit, to be honest.
Do you think Marcus Rashford has a place in his team if he comes back?
100%. I think Marcus Rashford could have a place on this team on the left side. I think it's Rashford. It just depends on what kind of Rashford we're gonna get and the type of Rashford and his mentality and all that stuff. But quality wise, Rashford has a place in a lot of teams, to be fair.
Yeah, I agree with you. Well, that kind of wraps up 27. Good, interesting match week, like we said. Kind of, when you sit back, relax, and watch, interesting match week in the Prem. Fulham is our team of the week, so no need to kind of, you know, divulge there. But we can go into the predictions.
Yeah, sir. Let's see.
All right, let's do it.
Arsenal this week, so big
It's gonna
one.
be an interesting one. Luckily, it's the last one, so we got a lot of time to think about it. First up, Wolves Villa. What are we feeling?
2-0 Aston Villa.
Okay. I'm gonna go 2-1 Villa. Bournemouth Sunderland.
I'm feeling a 2-1 Bournemouth here.
Yeah, I'm honestly feeling Bournemouth too. I'm gonna go 1-0. Sunderland's gonna hit it like a rough patch, which they've kind of been on a little bit of a rough patch, but I think it's gonna continue. Burnley Brentford.
1-1.
I like that. I'm gonna go 1-0 Burnley. Mix it up a little bit. Liverpool West Ham.
I'm gonna go 3-0 Liverpool.
I'm glad you went 3-0 because I was thinking 3-1. So at least we're not the same there. Newcastle Everton. This was on the reverse fixture. I remember at the Hill Dickinson. I think Everton took a beating in this game.
Yeah, I forgot, was it 6-2 or something like
It
that?
was it was some insane scoreline. I mean, horrible.
Yeah, we talked about it. Everton will be a tricky game. Newcastle, they also beat Quarterback 6-1 in that Champions League.
Yeah.
Big back, right? They've been scoring some goals. I'll give it to them, but I'll go 3-1 Newcastle.
I'm gonna go 2-1 Newcastle. I wanted to go 2-2 and give Everton a point, thinking that, they'd be out for revenge, but I see Newcastle needing the points more than Everton. Leeds City, what are we feeling?
No, I'm going crazy in this one. I'm gonna go 2-1 Leeds.
That's insane.
I think
Listen, I hope God's listening to you, and you've been a good, faithful man of God, and he gives you everything you desire. But I gotta go 3-1 City.
Yeah, I think this one's away at Leeds, so I've been there myself. It's gonna be
Yeah.
Leeds has been playing well as well, so I'm
They
giving
have
it
been
to
playing
one.
well, and they're actually,
They were up 1-0 on Villa last week, remember, and Villa tied the games.
yeah, they're actually a good watch, good to the eye, kind of play some exciting stuff, but
Yeah,
we'll see.
them and Sunderland. They do a very good mix of not just, that's why I can give them the respect. I mean, I give all the teams their respect, but in terms of the way they both play, I think they do a very good mix of physicality and playing, like you said, beautiful football.
Yeah, yeah. Alright, a few more left here. Brighton Forest,
I'm gonna go Brighton Munich, 1-0.
okay? I'm gonna go 2-0 Brighton Munich. Fulham Spurs, whoa, another all London affair. This is a difficult one, man. What are you thinking? Surely Spurs can't lose again.
Yeah, this one is difficult. I'll go 1-all.
Okay. I'm gonna go 2-1 Spurs. United Palace. This should be a good game. Palace has kind of been on a decent turn of form since they hit a dry patch earlier. What are you feeling?
I don't know, 2-0, 2-0 United.
I like that, but I wanna go 2-2, but I'm gonna go 2-1 United. Last up, Arsenal Chelsea. The big game of the weekend. What are we thinking?
The Emirates. I hope I get to watch this one, mate. I'm gonna go. Hopefully we snag a little points off you guys, mate. I'm gonna go 2-1 us.
All right.
I think it's gonna go the other way though, but I'm going for my team, mate.
I'm gonna go 2-1 our way.
Okay. Think it'll be a good game.
Yeah, I'm excited. I think it will be a good game. Funny enough, I think each time we do this where we go 2-1 or just whatever the score is, opposite sides, one of us always ends up being correct. So
Yeah. Hope
let's
it's me, mate.
yeah, listen, I hope it's me as well. Let's see. Again, I think it'll be another good week, another good weekend. We'll be back here next week and talking about these games, and I think that we'll say that it was a good weekend of Prem. I hope I can catch up some fantasy points on you after you jumped ahead of me. Might
Gotta chill on that, mate.
might have to play a triple captain for. You remember actually? I think in the first round I triple captained Holland when they played Leeds, and he blanked.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody just triple captain someone else in one of our leagues and it didn't go so well for them.
Uh,
And I'm like, yeah. Feel like, hey, that chip, it happens to us, man. It happens to all of us.
Hey, we love to see it.
Me too, mate.
We love
I'm
to
staying
see it.
up, but yeah, bro. There'll be some interesting games, and I'm excited for them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, that's it from me. 27 done and dusted. Looking forward to 28. I'll see you next week.
Yes, sir. Thanks for joining us as always.